Okay. All right. We'll cut the sound on Siri for the moment. Okay. So what I'm going to ask, well, so the topic, this is number 8, I believe, in the, number 8 in the Faith and Calm series. And welcome everyone who came. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it because I get to learn something interesting every week, and it's keeps me going with the faith and the calm. The topic to this time I was going to say was your thoughts create reality. Create the reality. My wife didn't like the topic, the title, so she titled it the Jewish version of the law of attraction. I don't know if you people know. Well, maybe Suri doesn't, but Amy does. There's heard of the law of attraction. So I was going to have Amy introduce the idea of the law of attraction, and then I would put a slight little different change in how we understand it. So don't worry about that. I think it's all good stuff. So go ahead and
double click on Amy.
Double
click on her picture.
I'm on gallery view for myself, so I see
okay.
just like the 3,
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I would say that I'm really curious about the Jewish version or view on law of attraction. But my understanding of the law of attraction is really just that, what you put out is what you get back. That if you put out something holy or you put out something with intention, if your mood is good and positive, if you are that the whole idea of law of attraction, I think, is that like attracts like. That if you think it's self-actualization. If you intentionalize or manifest, if you think positive, it's more likely that that's what outcomes. If you are negative, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's this whole idea of visualization is attached to it. Intentionalization. Can we bring out the outcomes we want? And I think about everything from positive psychology to sports psychology, but it's really about like if you have a difficult conversation you need to have, or a difficult interaction that, or a challenging moment, that you can approach it with love and approach it with the best possible outcome that you want it to be. And that hopefully that influences it. That if you are in your, like, I would say the word holiness comes to mind, but it's really more like your highest self. That if you put your highest self out there, hopefully that is what, gets reflected back to you. It's the idea of words versus fists, I think. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Can I just say something? Do you mind if I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll get into the picture. So Amy, you have to tell Scott something. You were destined to be a Rebbitzin, so you'll have to tell me has to have a career change.
A psychologist is often a lot like a Rebbitzin, okay. But I hope that I've summed that up well. But
awesome job.
Very good. Good. So, my job here, I guess, is to ground it there in Torah. So, right. Last week's parsha was an interesting parsha called we actually read 2, Bahar and Bekuhot side. But in Bahar, parsha's Bahar, it starts out talking about the laws of Shemitah. The laws of Shemitah. Shemitah means a sabbatical year in English. Refers to the fact that every 7 years, the land had to have a vacation for an entire year. We have to have vacations every once in a while. So God said, let all the land, the earth, have a vacation for a year. Don't plant anything. And the commentators point out it wasn't just 1 year. What would happen is obviously that it wasn't, if you don't plant, you plant in the 6th year, but in the 7th year you don't plant. But if the 7th year you don't plant, then you're not going to have anything in the 8th year. So what's going to happen is you're going to need food for 3 years. So God says, so the Chumash actually says an interesting question. It's a dialogue. It is a question and answer, which very rarely you see in Chumash, in Torah. It says, God says to the Jewish people, and if you ask me what's going to be if I don't plant in the 7th year, how am I going to have enough food? God replies. So it's the question, answer. God replies back. He says, well, I'll tell you, I'm going to provide a blessing in the 6th year, and there's going to be enough food for the 6th year in the 6th year. There's going to be enough food for the 7th year from the 6th year, and there'll be enough food for the 8th year from the 6th year. So for 3 years, I'll provide enough food for 3 years. Which is very interesting. I mean, interesting in that it's a dialogue, and interesting in that it's, God says, gives a blessing in the 6th year. Normally you'd think the land is pretty worn out by the 6th year, and yet God is saying, I'm going to provide enough food for 3 years. And if it happened to be a Jubilee year, Rashi points out, he has to provide for 4 years, because the Jubilee year came every 50th year. So it came right after the 49th year, which would be a sabbatical year. So there would have to be enough food for 4 years. But that's a lot. It's a miracle. So actually, it's a side point. And so this is actually one of the reasons the rabbis point out. They say, some people say that the Torah was not given from God. Some people, I remember having to take a class was in undergrad I was looking for credits, cheap credits. I took one of these Bible literature classes. It was a non-Jewish guy running the class, and he loved to torture the students. And he came up with all his theories, about, the different authors of the Bible and stuff of that sort. That's very popular on campuses. And anyway, and the P, the Q, the X, the Z, whatever the different authors and so forth like that, and that the book was all made up at some time in the First Temple period. And I was listening to Rabbi Jacob, and he said, that doesn't really fly, because, imagine, if somebody wants to manufacture a book, let's say it was some guy named Moses Jefferson, and Moses Jefferson came up with this idea of the sabbatical year, and sometime in the First Temple period, like they like to claim, sometime in the time of Solomon, then, he would never write something like this, that there's going to be a blessing on the land and the food is going to provide for 3 years. Because what's going to happen? After 7 years, people are going to look and say, it's not happening. There's no food here. So you don't predict that the land is, if you don't write things down like that if you don't have inside knowledge from God. So he's going to be stoned everywhere, because nobody planted, and there's going to be no food, and so it's going to be. And you also wouldn't predict that there would never be any more non-kosher animals found. And the Chumash says clearly there's only 4. There's the rabbit. There's
only 4 that
have one of the hooves. Yeah, I mean, there's more than that, but have one of the simanim, hooves or Jewet's cuts. So we've never found any more than that. But the Chumash says clearly these are the 4 that are going to be. So I mean, that's sort of a side point. But anyway, what is the point of Shemitah? So I think it's very much connected to faith and to trust. How do we connect it to faith and trust? So it comes from a sefer known as the Noam Elimelech, which was written by Rabbi Melech of Lezhansk. And Rabbi Melech of Lezhansk writes that he heard this thought from his brother, Rabbi Zusha. That's a lot of names. But this was all in the time 1700s and so forth. They were students of the Maggid, the student of the Baal Shem Tov. So they were they were 2 generations after the Baal Shem Tov. And he writes as follows. He says that every person has a divine flow of energy that comes to him and is designated for them, and this provides everything for them. The problem is, as we said with the law of attraction, is that sometimes people fall down, meaning that sometimes people lose confidence and trust and belief in themselves, and belief in their mission, and belief in who they are. And what that does is it causes a blockage above too, because how you view reality also has an effect on how reality responds back to you. Or another way to say it is that we are not God is the ultimate reality of realities, and we live in that reality. And therefore, the deepest, truest part of ourselves, as I said before, is connected with godliness. And therefore, we are the core. If you pull off all the onion peels off of a person, you'll find out that he's actually is tremendously holy, and we have a tremendously powerful strength inside of ourselves. And when we lose track of that, and we all do it sometimes, we look at the material world and it gives us these strong messages, and we forget who we can really be and who we really are. And when that happens, it causes a blockage above, and that blockage above causes us to in effect have that. So it's like the law of attraction, but the law of attraction, some people go a little too far with it, and they start thinking that, I can control all of reality, just by what I think. Can actually change the nature of the world. I don't know if you ever saw the movie What the Bleep. You know, that was no, and nobody say that movie. You saw that movie. Not recommending it, but anyway, it was one of the core forerunners of this, and many good points, but necessarily, but you know, but we say no. So you are destined to have a certain life, and you can't change that reality because God is bigger than than the reality inside of us. But on the other hand, you can certainly disrupt the flow. And so what God says is, if you do start questioning what's going to be in the seventh year, what's going to be with me, how it's going to provide food for me, how are things going to get done, and so forth, God says, I understand you got a little bit confused and so forth. So he says, you're gonna have a hard time in the seventh year. So I'm going to provide a blessing in the sixth year, and you will see that I am with you. I am together with you. I am not abandoning you. And every 7 years, Jews got this message that there's a God in this world, and he's taking care of everything. And just as you harvested, when you harvest a new plant and you make a blessing and you expect something to happen, that's also a miracle. And then the sixth year, it's also a miracle. And God is always taking care of you. It's like this guy that once, complained to his psychologist, and he said, Rabbi, or this psychologist, whatever it was, complaining to, and everything was to me was a rabbi, and he said, Rabbi, everybody hates me. Nobody cares about me. I'm all alone. I'm all left alone. Nobody likes me. And all of a sudden, 100 billion white blood cells jump up and they say, what are we, chopped liver? 24/7, we are patrolling your blood vessels. We found out that coronavirus before anybody else. You didn't even get sick. You didn't even come down with a temperature, and we already were developing the antibodies, which, by the way, is actually turning out to be quite true. Many people have the antibodies, and they never knew they ever got exposed or affected. So it's really quite interesting. So we've got, so he's taking care of us in many, many, many ways. And we sometimes focus on the negative part, and we think that that's what the reality is. And so these classes are all about, and trying to share these experiences and trying to say, hey, you are really something. And this is a point I wanted to bring out. It's a sort of a personal observation, but it had a big effect on me. When I was single, I remember going down once to Washington, D.C., see an old college roommate of mine, stayed there for Shavuos. And he set me up with Shabbos meals and Yontif meals with other people and so forth. And I was looking for shidduch. I was interested in getting married, but I was becoming religious. I think I was already kosher, yeah. So yeah, I was thinking about it. So I was whenever I got one of those opportunities, young couples, I wanted to see what married life was a taste of what married, Shabbos and family and stuff was like. And I remember he took me to this one couple that had just been married that year. And the woman was saying, how special the year leading up to her wedding was. She said she never had that much energy. She never got that much done ever before. She just lived on a different plane, higher than everything else. And it was an interesting message to me. She just said it was like a miracle. All these things were just happening to me, coming to me, because she was radiating this positive energy. Everything was working out right for her, miraculously. And I remember my wife saying exactly the same thing in the year before the wedding. Everybody came together. People helped her with this and with that and all the wedding preparations and everything else. And it was just amazing the amount of energy that happened. And I think that, so it's in us, when you are really optimistic and you are feeling like on top of the world, you actually do create this energy and think good things start coming to you. And so the law of attraction has a lot of attractive properties to it. And it does work. And I think it's because this truism that's about the energy of the world, that there's a flow of energy God just wants to give to us. The problem is that we're going to be all, what's in the Yiddish is a good word, verquetscht, all shrunk and shriveled in and narrow-minded and, and I can't. Then guess what? You can't. But if you look at it and you think of it in an optimistic way, and you look at it in a positive way, and you take faith, which is an intellectual idea, and you start turning it into bitachon, which is trust, into your actions. So you take the theoretical ideas and you start acting and trust, in God we trust, it's action and so forth, it actually changes the reality. You change the reality for people around you, and it makes you a better vessel, a keli, a vessel for receiving light and for receiving energy. So this is, I think, an important lesson, and it's an important practice to put into place. And we do this on a daily basis. I heard Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and he was giving advice. He said, take this time and think of it as a spa for your soul. And then he explained why he used the word spa. So he broke down the word spa, the letters, S-P-A. S is for spirituality, which means you should spend your time, if you got more time, learning Torah, because it gives you a perspective outside of yourself, outside of your normal way of thinking, and it lets you see the world from a bigger perspective. So that's the S in spirituality, S in spa. And then the second part is prayer, because prayer is starting to get in touch with your emotions and who you are. Because when you say the words, it's not just the words and the ideas, it's actually feeling and experiencing this experience of relating and talking to God. So prayer is a very powerful activity right now. And the best activity is, of course, actions. When we act in this way, when we talk to other people, how we give to other people and how we relate to other people, that actually has the biggest impact on how we change our reality around. So this is the spa treatment, is to take these three activities and do it as much as possible every single day, that we're still, whenever you see yourself falling down and you're saying, wow, I need to reconnect to who I am and what I'm doing. So what do we have here in time? Okay, so that's roughly the amount of time I had. So I think that's partially the law of attraction in Judaism. It's God is your shadow, and what we do has a big effect on how we actually actually bring down into this world. Grab a story to illustrate this? I don't think so right now. So I'm going to turn it over to my wife and let her take over. And hopefully we'll see you next week. I'll have some special stories. I hope I'm putting together a special.
Suri has a question.
Oh, Suri has a question. Okay, let me unmute Suri. Go ahead, Suri.
Thank you, Amy. No, I just wanted to say that was really fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
It really, really was.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Nothing profound.
I'm trying to pull in Shlomo Jordas. Okay.
Are Amy and I the only ones here?
No.
No, I'm here. Came late. Sorry. Had a little problem.
That was really lovely. I
hi.
agree with Suri. That was really nice.
It was wonderful. Yecheskel Shimon, I actually heard a story that might illustrate what you were talking about.
Okay, great.
Do you want me to share it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Actually, I did have one thing. I was going to, I heard a story about Emily too. So if she wants to tell that story that happened to her this week, I don't know if I'm putting her on the spot or not, but
Maybe she doesn't.
if you don't, then you don't have to. But
I actually told Molly what happened.
Okay.
Just another time.
Okay.
I'm not at home. I'm at my mom's. So.
Oh, yes, I understand.
Okay. Go ahead, Molly.
Okay. Well, this was a story that a rabbi in Atlanta told. He's a Chabad rabbi, and a friend sent me the link to his podcast. And he talked about a rabbi in the old country who had an assistant to help him raise money to give food to people who needed it, and to raise a lot of money to help people who were in great need in his village, in his area. So his assistant was a wonderful assistant. But one day he was going to get married, and he had to move to where his bride to be lived and to go live with her family. And they married, and that's what he did. So he had to leave the rabbi. And anyway, it was sometime after that the rabbi was looking for the money that he had tucked away, all this money that he had raised, and he had put it in a certain place, and it was missing. So somebody said to him that the only person who was an outsider who was in the house was really his former assistant, Anshe Chayil. Have you heard this, Yecheskel Shimon?
Yes, they did. Continue. I'm not going to
Well,
blow the
maybe I
story.
think you can tell it better than I can.
No,
Then
no, no,
why don't
keep
you
going,
tell
Mom.
it?
No, you're telling great. Keep going.
I mean, I don't know it exactly. I just heard it once a while ago. And then Anshe Chayil, so he went to visit Anshe Chayil and to just sort of make an inquiry, you know, not to accuse him, but just to ask him if he might know anything about where the money might be. And Anshe Chayil said that he would give him, he said, wait a minute. And he went and he got him whatever money he had. And he said not to worry. He asked the rabbi how much money it was. And the rabbi told him. And he gave him what he had. And then he said, don't worry, I'm going to get you the rest of the money. And sure enough, he did. He got him the rest of the money. Somehow he, you know, I don't know if it was days later or weeks later, whenever, but he got it to the rabbi. And the rabbi was able to use it for the purpose he intended, to help other people. Anyway, and then shortly after that, the police came knocking on his door and told him that there was a woman in the town that they found who was spending a lot of money, and it was very out of character for her. And she had all of this money, and they felt that it might have been taken, and you know, she had worked as his housekeeper, so they thought maybe she had taken it from him. Anyway, it turned out that there was the money that he was inquiring about of his assistant. So anyway, then he felt badly, and I guess he went back to see the assistant at a later point in time to talk to him about it and tell him that they found the money, and he said, I don't remember Yecheskel Shimon if he returned the money to the assistant or not. But he said to him, why did you, when I asked you about it, why did you give me the money if you didn't take it? And his assistant said that it was because he knew that the rabbi needed it and he wanted to help him to have what he needed. He was just helping him. So anyway, the rabbi gave him a beautiful blessing that he should be very successful and he should move to the city. In that case, I think it was Germany. I don't know if it was some city in Germany. Do you know Yecheskel Shimon? I forget. I think it was somewhere in Germany. Anyway, I don't think it was Austria. I think it was Germany. And he did, and that he would be successful. Anyway, he turned out to be the first Rothschild. Anshe Chayil was a Rothschild.
My gosh, that's a great story.
It was Spear. The name of the city was Spear.
Spear?
It's outside of Frankfurt. That's where the Rothschilds are from.
Is that where they're from? Okay, so maybe that's where I don't know if that's where he went or that's where he.
Speyer. Yeah.
Speyer?
Spear.
So is that an example of what you're talking about, of you do an action and it brings something else into the world? I mean, not exactly. I mean, maybe you're talking about something more spiritual. I mean, they ended up being a successful family, but
yeah. No, I think it does. I think I think it's a good example. Yeah, it's a beautiful story. It's such a good story that I just love listening to it again, you know, so that's the main thing.
Well, he might have been very philanthropic. You know, maybe he was able to be very philanthropic as a result of his earnings. I don't know about his descendants, but
yeah. Okay, good. Good. Yeah, you ready? Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Yecheskel Shimon. Thank you.
Okay, you can turn on the light.
Okay, good. So let's see if this works. Okay. Is it too bright?
Are you wearing your fun glasses?
Am I wearing my? I have like 6
No,
pairs.
Those are always the same ones.
I have 6
the fun
pairs.
ones.
No, it's not always. I have 6 pairs in different strengths, and they cost like $8.75 each. I just found them and I liked it, and then they started to go out of business. So I said, "Oh," they called me specially. They said, "We know you like these glasses," and so I said,
That's so nice.
"Thank you." So did Yecheskel Shimon tell you that? So on, I listened to a Thank You Hashem line, and sorry, the woman is in Muncie. She's very, very good. She's a Hasidic lady with a thick accent, but I really like her line. And she was.
What's her name?
Her name is Mindy Feldman. She lives 2 houses away from our friend Simachava. So anyway,
Oh my gosh!
yeah, you have to listen to her. She's really wonderful. So anyway, she was talking about that there was a guy who had corona, and he got it bad, And he started saying, obviously a Yiddish speaking person, he started saying, it's garnished, it's garnished, it's garnished. And that means it's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing, and got better. And so is that a Jewish concept? What is something like that? So the whole thing, the law of attraction and Jewish understanding is not, it's not magic, and it's not magic. It's I think that what it really is that when a person thinks positively, when a person thinks in a very healthy, productive way, in a very positive way, Hashem rewards you, because this is exactly how Hashem wants you to speak. And it happens in my life all the time. It happens to me with lost objects all the time. You know, if I'm in a bind and I have to be somewhere and I can't find something and I have to have that thing, and I'm in big trouble. I'm going to get in bigger and bigger trouble if I'm late. And as long as if I'm in a panic mode, if I'm in a desperate mode, I will not find that thing. As long as I'm in a desperate mode, I will not find it. But as soon as I stop and I say, Shalom Zehudis, there is nothing but Hashem. Hashem knows exactly where your keys are. And when Hashem wants to, he's going to show you the keys. Instantaneously, I see them. I find it happens all the time. As soon as I calm down, and I remind myself, Hashem is running this world, and if this is happening right now, it's for one purpose. It's because Hashem wants me to not panic. Hashem wants me to be calm. And when I'm calm, boom, I find it immediately. It happens also, lately, I don't have such problems with finding objects. Lately, you know, because I'm Zooming all day long. I'm Zooming all morning long with my kids. And it was a brand new technology for me. And it's relatively easy to run a meeting like this. Somebody's making, oh, I know where it is. Okay. So it's relatively easy for me to, relatively easy for me to be in a class like this. But it's an entirely different Zoom story when you have like 15 different applications that you want to use at different times with the children, and they're all different types of applications, and they're different places on your computer, and you're teaching little children, and it has to be seamless. It has to, you know, you have to keep delivering the stuff. And so in the beginning, it was like a nightmare to me. It was really something. And I found with that too, as soon as I calmed down and I reminded myself, there is no such thing as Zoom. There's no such thing as your computer. Everything is Hashem. Shlomo Zehudis, the computer is Hashem. As soon as Hashem wants you to find that document, you're going to find that document. All of a sudden, my mind opens up and I said, oh, I know where it is. And so it happens with anything, because Hashem doesn't want us to panic. Because what is panic? Panic is the opposite of knowing that Hashem runs the world, and Hashem is benevolent, and Hashem is working with us every single second. So, so our thoughts are powerful, but again, but again, our thoughts are not definitive. We don't control reality. You know, whatever Hashem wants in the end will happen. We are powerful, but Hashem is the bottom line in all instances. So, but thinking this way definitely improves your quality of life. There's no doubt about it. Life is completely different when you live as the Hebrew expression is Boteach Hashem. When you live as somebody who trusts Hashem, life is totally different. And I know I've told you about I have an extremely elderly aunt and an extremely elderly uncle. And they're thriving in their 90s. Why are they thriving? And I personally think neither one of them is an Orthodox Jew, but they're both they both have a lot of faith in the one above, and they live, life goes easier for them because of it. So so anyway, there was a okay, so you know, there was a great Jewish sage. His name was the Baal Shem Tov. I think Yeheskel Shimon mentioned him already. And when apparently my mother descends from him. So anyway, he when he was 5 years old, he was already an orphan on both sides, and his mother died at an earlier age, and his father passed away when he was 5. And his father called him. Oh, yes, Shimon moved something. I see why I'm uncomfortable. I have to put this. Is that going to be better? It's going to be better for me. I don't know if it's going to be better for you. I'll make the chair higher. So So, okay. So when he was 5 years old, um, his father was dying, and his father called him to his deathbed, and his father said to him, Yisrolik, that's the diminutive for Yisrol, his first name, Yisrol Baal Shem Tov. He said, Yisrolik, I have two things for you to always remember. Number one, fear no man, fear no person, and fear no event. And second, love every Jew with all your heart. And so those two things are it's an extremely powerful formula. It's an extremely powerful formula. So when we know that there is nothing else except for Hashem, there's no reason to be afraid of your boss and what he thinks of you. When we know that there's only Hashem, then if something untoward happens, all of a sudden you have signs of oh my gosh, a new malady. Guess what? Hashem is behind it. And if you and whatever is absolutely the best for you is going to happen. And 99% of the time it's going to blow over if you don't blow up. So, with panic. So, so anyway, these same two themes were also echoed when we got the Torah. We're about to, next Friday, or a week from Friday, we're going to have the Jewish holiday of Shavuos. And the Jewish holiday of Shavuos celebrates the anniversary, or however, I'll have to think about it next week, the exact year it was, 3,300 and something years ago probably, when we got the Torah. We had gotten out of Egypt. When we got out of Egypt, when Hashem rescued us for Egypt in order to give us the Torah. And he rescued us because he loved us, but he also rescued us because we had a job to do. We had to receive the Torah and learn about Torah and mitzvahs, and with Torah and mitzvahs, revolutionize the world. As I tell my kindergartners, Hashem made a beautiful world, but he left it up to us to make that beautiful world into a good world. So right before the giving of the Torah, those same two phenomenon happened that the Baal Shem Tov was talking about. Know that Hashem is everything, the Baal Shem Tov was told, and love every Jew with all your heart. So what happened before we got the Torah? We said a special formula. We said Na'aseh v'nishma. Hashem asked us, do you want the Torah? And we said Na'aseh v'nishma. What is Na'aseh v'nishma? Na'aseh v'nishma is we will do and then we will learn. They said, Hashem, we don't know what's in this Torah. We have no idea. The Torah had never been given before. But if it's from you, Hashem, give it to us. We know that if it's from you, it's good. So if you have that kind of aspect, that kind of a view of life, that there is nothing but Hashem, it's an amazing thing. And the other thing that they had, the other fine quality that they had, was when they arrived at Har Sinai, they stopped arguing with each other. Now, can you imagine? 3 million Jews, no arguments. That's a miracle in itself. And so that's similar to what the Baal Shem Tov said. What his father said, fear no one, know that there's only Hashem, and know what your job is. Your job is to transform the world with goodness and to love every Jew. A big part of that is to love every Jew with every bit of your heart. And so there was a sikha, the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave a talk on this week's Parsha. And he said that, actually it's probably last week's Parsha already. And he said a very, very strange thing in the Sikha. The Rebbe said that if you make yourself into something, why was the Torah given in the desert? And he answers, it's probably from the Gemara somewhere, that if you make yourself like a desert, then you what does it mean, make yourself like a desert? Make yourself into something so that you don't mind if anybody treads on you. In other words, you don't mind if people walk all over you. Then you become eligible or worthy that enormous new levels of the Torah are opened up to you. So, that's a really difficult concept. Let people tread on me? What kind? Is that a Jewish concept? If you take it at face value, at a very simple thing, it's not a Jewish value. It's not a Jewish value, meaning that meaning that if you do things, a person is supposed to do things to protect themselves. You don't have to, if you're, God forbid, if you're in an abusive relationship, you don't have to stay in that abusive relationship. Torah doesn't want you to do that. If somebody is abusing you also, you don't have to, you move out of the way. You don't have to take that. And it's not a Jewish concept to take it. But what it means is, if it doesn't do a thing to you, if somebody tries to tread on you, it doesn't faze you. It doesn't do a thing to you, because you know that there's no power in this person. There's nothing. If this person is, that's that person's business. But if you don't take it to heart, in other words, if you don't take it to heart, because you know that there is only Hashem, and if Hashem has this person say these things to me, okay, I'm supposed to listen, I'm supposed to hear it, but I'm not going to take it to heart, because I know that I'm not in this person's control. The only one who has any say over me is Hashem. So if you already see that level of Ein Od Milvado, that there is nothing but Hashem, then you deserve to, it's worthwhile that you deserve to have higher levels of Torah given to you, because you're ready for it, because you're already living your life on the level of understanding that there is nothing but Hashem. So it makes sense that higher levels of Torah would be given to you. So I want to wrap up with a story that I heard a few weeks ago. And if anybody wants to, I can send you the story. If you're on WhatsApp, I can send you the story. It was originally told in Yiddish, but it has English subtitles, and it's a very interesting story. So there was a man, his name was, the person who tells the story, his name is Harav Elimelech Biderman. He lives now, and he's in Yerushalayim. And he went to visit a friend of his, Rabbi Pinchas Rosenberg. And the story happened a couple of years ago. Rabbi Pinchas Rosenberg was extremely ill when Rabbi Biderman came to visit him. In fact, Rabbi Rosenberg would die. It was 2 days before he passed away. Two days before his neshama was taken from him, and Rabbi Biderman visited him. And I was probably on a Thursday, because this man, the other one, Rabbi Rosenberg, who had been the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva of Karlin. In other words, these are huge people. Both of them are huge people, and he visited him 2 days before, and this Rabbi Rosenberg was known, the one who was incredibly sick with we call it in Hebrew, they call it the disease, cancer. He was incredibly sick. He could barely speak, but he had an enormous smile on his face. And this Rabbi Rosenberg, was famous for his smile. His smile was incredible. And all throughout the years that he had the disease, throughout the whole time, it didn't do anything to his smile. His smile was still absolutely unbelievable. And 2 days before he was to pass away, he still had that. And as Rabbi Biderman says, this was not a normal smile. It was not a smile plastered on a person's face. It was a smile that you don't forget. And he was asked, how is it that you have that smile even now? How can a person have such a smile? You're suffering so much. How can a person have such a smile? And Rabbi Rosenberg said, I'm going to tell you a story. And he said that there was a family that lived in an apartment in Yerushalayim. And they lived on a 4th floor, and there was a nice, big, young family. And one day they had a visitor, and the door opens, and who's the visitor? The visitor's a lion. There's a lion that comes running into the apartment, and the kids go crazy. Ah! One kid scrambles on the counter and tries to get on the top of the refrigerator. Another kid locks himself in the bathroom. Another kid runs away, and the kids are screaming. The oldest kid, but one kid is just standing there. He's just standing there, and as Rabbi Biderman says and he gives a look, and he's just standing there. He's just standing there and looking, and everybody else is flying for the skies. And the oldest one, or one of the kids, starts screaming, because they were smart enough. They were, when you're about to lose your life, you should say Shema. And so all the kids are like, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem. And the other kid didn't join in. He's just standing there and looking. And then it's complete mayhem in the apartment. And all of a sudden the lion reaches up and takes off the lion's head, and they see, oh, it's Tati, it's Abba, it's Papa, it's our father. And everybody laughed and calmed down, and they ran to the kid and they said, how did you know it was Tati? And the kid said, listen, we live on the 4th floor, and the person had to get into the apartment. Who has a key? A lion doesn't have a key. Obviously it was Tati. And so Rabbi Rosenberg said, so everything that's happening to me, whatever it's going to dress itself up in, if it's dressing itself up as the disease or it's dressing itself up as something else, it's Tati. It's only Tati. There's only Tati in heaven, only Tati Shabashamayim. And if it's Tati Shabashamayim that's doing this to me, why should I be afraid? And anyway, so that was his story. So the point of the story is that, nothing has any independent power. Our virus today doesn't have any independent power. People don't have any independent power over us. And when a person lives with that understanding, and also with the understanding that that Hashem is good and that Hashem loves us more than we can possibly imagine, it leads to a different life. I remember when I was becoming frum years ago, I decided that people have 2 blockages in their ability to embrace this attitude. The first blockage is that some people don't believe God exists. Truly, every Jew, it says we are ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We are believers, children of believers. Every Jew, deep down, every Jew believes in Hashem. It's part of the territory. It could be covered up by a lot of cynicism, a lot of other things, but if they get into just like there's no atheist in a foxhole, there's no Jew that doesn't believe at a deep level in Hashem, and it comes out and so the second thing I used to say, okay, some people believe that they don't believe in Hashem. That's a problem. And then there's a whole other group that are not quite convinced that Hashem is good. They think, I'm good, I'm moral. The one who's running this world, I'm not sure about him. So if we learn enough, and this is a marvelous time to learn, if we learn enough about Hashem, and we know that we know about Hashem's goodness, and if we join a Thank You Hashem movement, we can teach ourselves even, because when you stop and pay attention to the 1,000 kindnesses that Hashem does for us not even every day, every second, then it's hard not to trust him. But you have to be tuned into it, because the Yetzer Hara, the self-sabotaging instinct in us constantly tries to direct us away from belief in Hashem. It's a very big part of life. It's a big part of my life, my Yetzer Hara. And Hashem gave it to, that also is good, because in struggling against negative thinking, in struggling against anti-Hashem thinking, we discover who we really are. So does anybody have any questions?
Lovely.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, good. So,
What did you say again? Could you say that again? You said if we learn enough about Hashem and we stop to think about the 1,000 kindnesses that Hashem shows us every second. What did you say after that?
we become different people. And I have to say, the Yetzer Hara is never tired. And if you become frum, it doesn't mean that he retires. He gets stronger. The stronger your belief becomes, the stronger your Yetzer Hara, because you deserve a stronger Yetzer Hara. Because you have to, Hashem wants a Jew to be challenged every day. And so every day, you can't ride on your laurels in this life. You just can't. You have to constantly, you could have a I can't even remember. You know, you can have all these epiphanies. You know, today I had this amazing epiphany, and without epiphany, if I could live without epiphany forever, I would never have a problem. But Yetzer Hara was busy, gave me a new problem, gave me a new this, gave me a new that, and he's constantly trying to knock us off, because every time we knock him down, we cause tremendous pleasure above, and we change the world. Like Hashem gave us, it's our job to change the spiritual reality of this world, and it's Hashem's job to work to do the physical reality. He entrusted the spiritual into our hands, and he's running the physical. So anybody, anything else, any comments?
That it was just beautiful. And I know people who just, because they don't believe in Hashem, it's very hard for them to let go of situations where people trample on them, or they're going through something difficult. And so you have to have both. But how do you approach that with people who, you know, for starters, don't even really believe in God that much? So
Yeah.
what would your suggestion be
So
to somebody who's going through something and they don't realize that, you know, thank you, Hashem,
unless
would
the
help?
person asks you for it, then the best way to teach another person is simply by your personal example, and not by what you say. If a person approaches you, then you can, and they're open, then you can say anything you want. But if they're not asking, the only way you can hope to influence them is through who you are, who you become. That's the only way to influence somebody, unless they ask you. And because otherwise it's offensive to give advice when not asked. Yes, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to be unmuted. Sorry. So your equipment was making noise, so we had to mute.
Thank you. I know, I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
So there's Mindy Feldman who gives the thank you, Hashem. It's on the phone.
Yeah, I'm going to send you the information separately. I did send it to you once, and I'm going to send it to you
I
through
wasn't
email.
ready for it.
That's okay. I'm going to send it to you through email. And yeah.
Thank you, Shlomo.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Shlomo. This was the conduit for the thank you, Hashem
Hotline. Yeah.
hotline. Yeah. That was a wonderful class. It's so nice to see you in your funky glasses again.
That was lovely.
You have those glasses. You have a few pairs of those
I
exact
have
ones.
several pairs of these, except the stripes are in different places. And if the stripe, okay, anyway, some are better than others. Okay,
But
Amy,
they
what did
match
you
with your
wanna say?
outfits.
Oh, Amy, we have to find out what dinner is.
Oh. The last